We have Heidi Huber on. She is she's the head of Ohioans Against CommonCore.com, and I heard her last week on Doc and Skip show on Blaze Radio in the morning, and I learned more. Heidi, are you there?
I am.
I learned more from you in a half hour of listening to you on CommonCore than I knew. I just think you are really, really well-spoken, and you're approaching this in such a way that is really simple to understand. Let me jump into what happened over the weekend. Arne Duncan, the education secretary, said CommonCore is not a national curriculum.
Well, I think the timing of us talking is incredible. You know, the morning after the NGA event, I fear what diseases they've left D.C. with this time, but the gifts from the devil never come without a price, and that is exactly what we're experiencing. This idea that this is not a national curriculum, they have put in place every punitive damage, punishment rather, to suffer under if you don't do things exactly according to their plan, which results in a national curriculum.
Okay, you're talking about, hang on just a second, you were talking about NGA, and I don't know if most people speak that vernacular. That's the National Governors Association. And this is critical if you're understanding CommonCore. It's critical that you understand the role the National Governors Association has played in CommonCore. Can you take us through this history a bit?
Dial it back to the NGA conference 2005, which was the only NGA conference that incorporated the Education Summit of Achieve, Inc. That is where Bill Gates came in. It was redesigning the American high school, was the Initiative for Action, is the guise it was under. Governor Huckabee at the time was the chairman of the NGA. To give the guise of a state-led effort, the National Governors Association and the Chief Council of State School Officers basically partnered with Achieve, Inc., which is a child of the NGA to begin with, to come up with these national standards. They don't call them that, they just called it this common goal, this common set of standards among the states, just for this objective of getting everybody at a minimum standard. But what they did was they devised it with funding through the federal government, with funding from Bill and Melinda Gates. These have become now the pretense of the state fiscal stabilization funds. This idea that this is tied to the race to the top, which it is, and it is the blueprint in detail of how to seed this into the states. The big bucks go back to the state stabilization funds. And if I can read to you from a statement from the American Association of School Administrators. Okay, so these people are part of the machine, so to speak. Any school district whose state applied for and accepted funds under the recent American Restoration Reinvestment Act is now required to submit to the state new and comprehensive information with identifying information on every student and every teacher in their school district. This regulation applies to all U.S. school districts. We
banged this drum when the stimulus package was going out, and I said, do not take this money. Don't take this money. Don't take this money. You are going to be trapped in a national nightmare. Don't take this money. All of the states said, no, it's not going to be a problem. And look here we are now. Could you answer this question, and then I'm going to get off of the governors. But many of the governors, let's take them one by one. First of all, Huckabee said that he was unaware that these things were going on, that this has turned into a nightmare, and that he was against it now. Then he went back to the National Governors Association and said, don't abandon it, rebrand it. Where does Governor Huckabee stand on CommonCore? He says one thing in public and another behind closed doors.
Well, he has to, because his fingerprints are on it. I can't speak for him. I don't know that some of this, well, quite honestly, let's face it, none of this was probably crystal clear to the governors at the time. The problem is this is not the governor's role. We have moved into what you've been speaking about for 5 years. This is an administrative state. Some of the comments that came out from the Blaze article this morning, I know there are some who aren't in favor of this, but the state is moving forward through the Department of Education. Mm-hmm. We have completely lost our representative government. We have no path to restitution. They've eliminated that for us.
And
they've silenced us, and they've denied our reality.
And the founders' intent was for education to be handled at the local level, as closest to home as you can possibly get it. And no parents and no teachers had any involvement in creating this. Isn't that correct?
There were a handful of educators, if you want to call it that, but for all intent and purposes, no. This is David Coleman's baby. He and a select half dozen other people behind closed doors, and because
Who is
of
he?
it being a
Who's David
Coleman?
The head of the chief.
His closest come to education was his mother was a teacher. David Coleman, you can trace back his beginnings at McKinsey Consulting. And that may sound familiar because they were the ones that advised Enron. McKinsey's new gig is big data. That's their mantra. The chief people that came out of McKinsey, Coleman, Gernster, who is the IBM chairman, and Sir Michael Barber. Those three all came from McKinsey. They have found a way to monopolize this data collection and utilize it in any capacity they wish.
Okay, so let me go back to the governors, because some good governors are in this deep, and they are defending and doing everything they can to make sure that anybody like you or like me is considered a conspiracy theorist. Scott Walker is in it and for it.
Governor Herbert from Utah
is for it. I mean, if you look at Texas was against it, but I think that's a ruse. I think Texas was the first one that said no CommonCore, but then they put what was the name of that thing? C-Scope in, which is the same thing. And now you're starting to have exactly what Governor Huckabee said he wanted to happen: rename it, relabel it, relaunch it. And so now you're having things like, I love this, next generation Sunshine State standards, and you have Iowa Core. They are changing the names of it, and these governors and people in power are trying to convince us that, oh yeah, you know what, you're right. But that's not going away, is it?
It's not going away. The governors are the ones who, I don't understand how statutorily they had this authority. They're the ones that brought this into the states, to agreeing to these grant apps for the race to the top and the state fiscal stabilization funds, to the stimulus funds. The governors are the ones that accepted those. Again, an end run around state legislatures. They take it to, in Ohio, it's called a controlling board. The grant's accepted there. That's where it gets its legal basis. The reason you see so many pieces of legislation that are able to get out of committee that are related to, protecting the data, related to stopping the assessment, that's because those pieces can be dealt with later, so to speak. They absolutely cannot eliminate college and career-ready standards. The nucleus of these common set of standards amongst the states and these student longitudinal data systems cannot be eliminated, or they stand to risk billions of dollars that they received initially from the state fiscal stabilization funds. That is the crux of this.
How do you respond, Heidi, to the people who continually say, there's no curriculum tied to this? I don't even know where these people are coming from. There's absolutely no curriculum. All the states are still in control of their curriculum. So what are you so worried about?
Well, there's twofold, but to me the most obvious answer to that is, well, then why do textbooks have to be aligned? We've never had to have textbooks aligned to a set of standards before now.
Yeah.
Even with No Child Left Behind. That didn't involve national standards.
And what about the rigor? This is supposed to be so unbelievably rigorous, and this will put us on par with the rest of the world. What have you found concerning that?
I say so too. These
never
standards
been
are
reviewed,
untried, untested, unproven anywhere ever. I mean, I asked my legislator who has this ruse bill, what happens when 50 million children fail simultaneously? What are you going to do? How dare you do this?
Well, we have to do something.
That's a concern.
Yeah, they'll just tell you we have to do something because our standards right now have gotten us to this place. We have to do something. It's the same excuse they use for healthcare.
For everything.
We had to do
Banking,
something.
Everything.
Yeah, everything.
Well, that's why we're willing to accept it. If your house is burning down, you're not going to ask where the water's coming from to put it out. And they put us under this false pretense that our system is failing, that 40% of kids get to college and aren't ready for college. Then how did they get admitted to college?
So here's what I'm concerned.
I mean, we don't even question the most obvious, ridiculous statements that they make to us. We started going downhill when we enforced state-level standards that came from the Clinton administration with Goals 2000. That was the most steady decline, linear progression downward. And we've doubled our appropriations for education in Ohio since 2000.
Doubled.
And we still have a crisis. We've gone from $6.8 billion, now we're up over $12 billion in 2015.
So here's what I'm really concerned about. At some point, they have to close the door. And they're already doing it. They're not going to say you can't go get homeschooling. What they're doing is they're aligning all of the tests for colleges aligning them with CommonCore. So if you can't figure things out the way you learned in CommonCore, you can't compete in society. You won't get into college, which I'm not all broken up about. But am I wrong on that?
No, I mean that David Coleman was moved from president of Achieve Inc. over to the president of the College Board.
Right.
What credentials does he have for that? He doesn't. Mm-hmm. It's all a part of the game.
So what is the without going into conspiracies or anything else? Because we looked at a math problem last week on the air on television, and I asked the team. I said, "Is there anyone here that can figure this out?" It was 15 minus 8. And I said, can anybody here solve this the way CommonCore standards are expecting our children to solve it? We didn't understand the answer, let alone the question. We really didn't. I said, okay, here's the answer. Mm-hmm. And I put it up on the board, and no one in the building could tell me what the hell that even means. So what is the end game here? What is it they're trying to do?
Well, in that instance, to me, you're not supposed to have the answers. Because remember, you're to look to them for the answer.
Yep. Haven't you found that one of the main goals of this is so that parents can't help their kids with homework. They must rely on the system. Yeah, the state.
That's what it came to me. And it also, at the same time, you can't rely on your parents. Your parents look stupid.
Yep.
Because your parents can't figure it out. And your parents are like, what the hell does this even mean? And the school system will tell you, well, come on now. I know, but they it's like Al Gore. Remember what Al Gore said? Your parents don't understand these things. They've been trying to put a wedge between the parents and the state for a very long time.
Well, I mean, that's the math problem is a microcosm of the entire web. I mean, the whole idea is that you, whether it's your math problem, whether it's paying your electric bill, housing, whether it's your health care, you can't function without the role of government. That's the whole idea behind this. There is no right or wrong. It's whatever the state says it is.
What is the biggest mistake people who are against CommonCore make? What is the biggest mistake when talking to somebody about this? And what is the biggest positive? What makes the most inroad? What is the worst and the best argument?
To me, the worst argument is we have fallen into the trap of they designed for us, which is to argue about the standards. They have reduced this to an argument about the standards. I don't care if these are the best standards in the world. I don't care if Ronald Reagan is the president. I don't want the federal government in my classroom.
Okay, the worst argument?
Period.
Worst argument?
Because it doesn't sell well that this is an Obama-driven takeover.
Right, and he didn't start it, so it's a weak argument because it's been going on for a long, long time, and he technically did not start this.
Right.
He didn't.
Heidi,
right. This is a 50-year march since 1964.
Yeah. So it's a bad to call this Obamacore is wrong. Is wrong.
Heidi, I thank you. We have got to run, but I thank you so much. Ohioans Against CommonCore.com. Ohioans Against CommonCore.com. Keep up the good fight. I know the governor is against you guys on this, but the truth will always win in the end. And until they shut technology off on us, your voice will always be heard. Heidi, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Good luck tonight with the Google guys.
Thank you very much. Sponsor this half hour is NSA is FreedomWorks. The NSA spy.